want to make a video talking to you guys about my experience with resin printers and FDM printers. So when I started off in 3D printing, I started with FDM, and then since then I've kind of moved more towards resin. So to explain why I made that shift and the strengths and weaknesses of each one, I have a couple points I want to go over. So I'll be going over quality, price, maintenance, and ease of use. So let's start off with quality. So right off the bat, you'll probably notice that my FDM prints are way bigger than my resin prints, and there's a reason for that. My resin printer is just much better with smaller details and fine details because of the way the machine works. So if you don't know, resin printing goes from a liquid, the resin, and then it cures it with an LCD screen, and then it layer by layer also prints upside down prints. It's really cool. So similar, FDM's also layer by layer, but it is fusing plastic together by getting it really hot, so it kind of like melts together. As a result, resin printing is more accurate. Honestly, I've seen minis though that have been printed with FDM that look just as good as resin, which is very weird. They are post-processed to be filled with like primer and stuff, and they look fantastic. But overall, straight out the printer, resin's going to be higher detail and higher quality than FDM. Simple as that. Now, you can print resin things as big as FDM things. The issue is, again, because the way the printer works, you'll be dealing with suction forces. It's like, what does that mean? You'll get these like layer shifts in it. So surprisingly, my elephant's hollow here, so I don't have that problem. But since he's essentially like a big old sphere, since it's such a big cross section pulling off at the bottom of the resin vat every time, you'll get like a line through it. Again, I hollowed him so he doesn't have that problem. But that's another step with it too. To get the quality, I hollowed a larger model. Kind of keep that in mind. Now with FDM printers, again, because of how they work, if you don't have everything perfectly supported, it's going to ooze plastic onto nothing if there isn't a support there. With my resin printer, I have a little more leeway. If there is an island or something that's just not supported when it's trying to print, it's not a huge failure or even a failure at all. Like I know if you run these files through when they're supported through like a file validator, they do have islands, but they're still perfectly printing and you don't see any problems with them. So it's more forgiving and the quality still looks fantastic. And again, the small details are superior, and for fragile elements. Again, because of the supports, you gotta support everything on FDM for sure. And when you're pulling the supports off, you might break more fragile elements. With this, you can make tiny little supports as well, and it's just a lot more forgiving overall. Moving on from that, what is the price? So at this point, I'm making this video in late 2019, so who knows how prices will change, but currently you can get a really good resin printer or a really good FDM printer for about 300 bucks. I have 3 Anycubic photons and 1 Ender 5, and they're all fantastic machines and a pretty reasonable price point in my opinion. Now let's move on to the material you used to use for them now. So by far, doing filament, which is the plastic you use in an FDM printer, is cheaper. You just get more material for what you pay for. For 1 kilogram spool, it's anywhere between like $20 to $30. Now for resin, it's also between $20 and $30, but there's just less there. It's like a bottle this big, it's like 500 milliliters. I always get the question where it's like, well, how much can I print with that? It's a really hard question to answer because minis come in all different sizes. Obviously, I might print something like this for an encounter or a dragon lane for an encounter. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to know. So the best way I can answer that is how much each mini costs me. So when I do these calculations, I do them based on like normal PCs. So somewhere in between this and this size, somewhere in there. These are both monsters, kind of bad example. You get the point. So for resin, it's about 11 to 13 cents. That doesn't really account for electricity or printer maintenance, but for me those are pretty much negligible anyway because I haven't had any failures with mine and I've had them for months. Now for FDM, the same mini might be like 5 or 4 cents, so much cheaper. But again, it's a trade-off in resolution. Up to you what you really want to do. So moving on from there is maintenance. Now, FDM printers have been like the crux of my existence. I started with the Prusa i3 MK2S and it just drove me insane. Sorry to Prusa lovers, I got like a defective machine which was later confirmed, but it like spoiled me on it because I got an Ender 5 for literally a fraction of the price and it works so much better. That being said, this is a calibration CAD. So it's just a cube, it has an overhang, and I can see how well it prints to know what's wrong with my printer. There's not like high detail, it's not the point, to see if all the sides are smooth and how the print is going. I have never had to do a calibration print for my resin printers, and I have 3 of them. They've all just worked flawlessly without having to struggle with it. The number one thing you have to know how to do and like know well though is how to level your bed. That bed isn't level and it's not the right friction between that first layer and the bed itself, nothing's gonna print. You're gonna get a little disc at the bottom of your vat that will peel off, which is a huge pain. But that being said, if this fails, you'll get like a plastic spaghetti monster, which is also really annoying. But overall, I would say definitely resin wins. I've had pretty much no failures. I mean, my success rate is well over 95%, and ones that do fail, it's me. It's like always me, pretty much user error. Moving on from that is ease of use, which I was kind of going into anyway. This is just easier to use resin printers because there's just fewer moving parts, which means there's less things that can go wrong. All I have is my bed coming up and down and my LCD screen lighting up. You do get issues with Z-wobble sometimes. I never had a problem with that, but that's an error that can go wrong. As far as errors that can go wrong with FDM printing, you just have so many more settings to deal with. You know, more belts, you have stepper motors you're dealing with, there's just a lot more. Temperature, like I had my printer in a bad spot where the AC would hit it, so I had one side of my print cooling faster than the other side of my bed, so it peeled up on one side, and for some reason I couldn't figure out what the problem was, and I'm like, oh, it's in front of the AC. That's something I would never have to worry about with resin printers, because they're not that sensitive. Same with you just look at the slicer themselves, you only have like 6 settings for resin printing. It's like the exposure time, the bottom layers, and a couple more, that's pretty much it. For this, you have a lot of different settings you can have, from like infill pattern, the layer height, what type of PLA. Again, many different settings that you'd possibly need. Overall though, they really are both fantastic. Many people use FDM printing for larger pieces like this or terrain because it's cheaper, it's faster, and it gets the job done, and still it's really good. But overall, I do recommend resin because it's a little more forgiving. The only thing and caveat with it, people are worried about the toxicity of the resin a lot. Again, just don't get it on your skin. Wear gloves, you're fine. I really haven't had any issues with that. Same with the smell. I really haven't had any issues with that either. I use Anycubic Gray, works fantastic. I've also noticed that PLA, as it's going, it kind of smells sweet. It's kind of a side note, I kind of like it. I know ABS smells really bad. It's a trade-off. There's so many different little aspects and niches of 3D printing. You'll find what works best for you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, because there is a lot you can possibly ask, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thank you.